My teacher gave me an F because I wrote too well. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on my paper when Mr. Peterson handed it back. Big red F circled at the top. Next to it, he wrote, "Plagiarism suspected." My stomach dropped. I'd spent weeks writing that horror story about a haunted music box for our Halloween assignment. It was based on this creepy antique my grandmother had in her attic that always gave me the chills as a kid. I raised my hand. "Mr. Peterson, can I talk to you after class?" When everyone left, I walked up to his desk. "This story is mine. I wrote every word." He crossed his arms. "Look, Jamal, I've been teaching for 15 years. I know when a student suddenly jumps from C-level work to professional quality writing. Whose story did you copy? It's not copied. I can prove it." I pulled out my phone and showed him my Google Drive. "See? First draft is from August. I've been working on horror stories since middle school. My uncle got me into Stephen King." Mr. Peterson barely glanced at the screen. "Anyone can fake timestamps. Upload dates don't prove anything." My face got hot. "Then what do you want me to do? Admit where you got it from, and maybe I'll give you partial credit if you write your own story." I was so frustrated I could barely speak. This was my story. I'd written it at 2 a.m. after watching The Conjuring with my cousin. Every detail about the music box's brass dancer and the way it played that creepy lullaby came from my own imagination. That night, I told my mom what happened. She's a lawyer, so she doesn't mess around when it comes to unfair treatment. "We're going to the principal tomorrow," she said. "This is ridiculous." The next morning, Mom and I sat in Principal Williams' office. Mr. Peterson was there too, looking uncomfortable. "Jamal claims this is his original work," Principal Williams said, holding my story. "But you suspect plagiarism. What's your evidence?" Mr. Peterson shifted in his seat. "The writing quality is far above his usual level, and the plot structure, the dialogue, it's too sophisticated for a sophomore." "That's not evidence," my mom said firmly. "That's an assumption." Principal Williams looked at me. "Jamal, are you willing to prove this is your work?" "Yes, sir." "How?" "Write another story. Right now. Same quality, similar style. 1 hour." They put me in the library with a laptop. I was nervous, but also kind of excited to prove myself. I started typing a story about a haunted trumpet that played itself in an empty band room. I drew from memories of staying late after school for jazz band practice when the building felt spooky and quiet. 60 minutes later, I handed in 4 pages about this kid who hears a trumpet playing the same sad song every night at midnight. Turns out it belongs to a student who died in a car crash decades ago, still trying to finish his solo for the spring concert. Principal Williams read it on the spot. Then he looked at Mr. Peterson. "This is the same writing style, same voice, similar themes." Mr. Peterson's face went red. "Well, maybe he had help, or—" "Enough!" Principal Williams cut him off. "There's no evidence of plagiarism here. Jamal's grade should reflect the quality of his work." But Mr. Peterson wasn't having it. "I'm not changing the grade. I still think something's fishy." That's when my mom stepped in. "Then we'll take this to the school board." 2 weeks later, we sat in the district office while 3 board members reviewed both stories. They also looked at my Google Drive history and even checked some earlier assignments I'd written. "We find no evidence of academic dishonesty," the board chair announced. "The original grade must be changed to reflect the actual quality of the work." I ended up getting an A on that Halloween story. But the best part came 6 months later. My English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, told us about a statewide young writers contest. The theme was local legends and ghost stories. I remembered my haunted music box story sitting in my Google Drive. I polished it up a bit, added some better descriptions, and submitted it. 3 months later, I got a call from the contest organizers. First place, state level, $500 prize and publication in their annual anthology.
"Promise to stay away from us." "Absolutely not," I said before Marcus could even consider it. "She systematically poisoned multiple people over decades. She needs to face real consequences." The lawyer tried to guilt us, talking about Linda's age, her health problems, how prison would be difficult for her. I thought about Marcus's grandmother dying in a nursing home, probably wondering why her family didn't believe her. I thought about all the family members who'd suffered mysterious illnesses over the years. I thought about how Linda had laughed in those recordings about making me sick. "No deal," Marcus said firmly. "She faces the full charges." Linda's supporters made one last push to change our minds. They organized a family meeting at Sarah's house, ambushing us with a room full of relatives ready to plead Linda's case. "She's sick," one aunt argued. "She needs therapy, not prison." "Think about what this is doing to the family," an uncle added. "We've never had scandal like this. Can't you handle this privately?" The pressure was intense. They talked about family loyalty, about forgiveness, about how Linda had already suffered enough. They minimized her actions, reframed them as misguided love, accused us of being vindictive. But Sarah stood up for us. "Linda poisoned my mother," she said coldly. "She poisoned children at family gatherings." She laughed about it. "This isn't about family scandal. It's about stopping a predator." The room erupted in arguments. Accusations flew about taking sides, about destroying the family, about airing dirty laundry in public. Marcus and I sat in the center of it all, weathering the storm of our family tearing itself apart. Finally, Marcus stood up. "Mom made her choices," he said, his voice carrying over the chaos. "She chose to poison people. She chose to lie about it. She chose to keep doing it for years. Now she faces the consequences. And if you can't support us in seeking justice for her victims, then you're complicit in what she did." We left the meeting with half the family no longer speaking to us, but the other half, the ones who'd suffered Linda's cooking over the years, stood firmly with us. As we prepared for trial, I reflected on how different my life had become. 3 years ago, I just wanted Linda to accept me as her daughter-in-law. Now I was the key witness in her criminal trial. The irony wasn't lost on me. Linda had tried to fix me to make me suitable for her son. Instead, she'd revealed herself as someone no family should have to endure. Her obsession with control, her willingness to hurt others to get her way, had finally caught up with her. Marcus and I grew stronger through the ordeal. We'd faced his mother's cruelty, his family's division, and threats to our safety. We'd stood together when it would have been easier to give in to the pressure. "I'm sorry," he said one night as we reviewed our testimony for the 100th time. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you when you first got sick. I'm sorry I defended her for so long. You couldn't have known," I told him. "She's your mother. You're supposed to trust your mother." But that was Linda's greatest weapon, the trust that comes with family. She'd exploited it for decades, hurting those who should have been safest in her her care. As we headed to bed the night before the trial, I checked our security system one more time. The cameras showed our quiet street. No signs of Patricia or any other of Linda's supporters. Our doors were locked, our windows secure. Tomorrow, we'll face Linda in court. Tomorrow, the full truth will finally be told. Tomorrow, justice would begin for all her victims, including the ones who never lived to see it. I thought about Marcus's grandmother, about all the family members who'd suffered in silence, dismissed and disbelieved. Tomorrow was for them too. The trial would be difficult. Linda would play the victim, her supporters would fill the gallery, and our family would never fully heal from the divisions her actions had caused. But we would be there, Marcus and I, along with Sarah and my brother-in-law's wife and all the others who'd finally found their voices. We would tell our truths, show our evidence, and ensure that Linda faced justice for every calculated dose of poison she'd ever served with a smile. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a strange sense of peace. Linda had tried to break me, to fix me through poison and pain. Instead, she'd revealed her true nature and united her victims against her. Tomorrow, her reign of culinary terror will finally end. The courtroom doors loomed before us as we arrived at the courthouse. Marcus gripped my hand tightly as we walked past a cluster of Linda's supporters, holding signs that read, "Free Linda" and "Family First." Patricia stood among them, glaring at us with pure hatred. Inside, the prosecutor met us in a small conference room. She spread out documents across the table, her expression grave. "There's been a development," she said. "Linda's lawyer filed a motion claiming mental incompetence. They're arguing she has early onset dementia." My stomach turned. Of course Linda would try this angle. Marcus slammed his fist on the table, making the papers jump. "She's lying. She's completely lucid." "I know," the prosecutor said, "but they have a psychiatrist willing to testify. We need to be prepared for this strategy." The courtroom filled quickly. Linda entered wearing a modest gray dress, her hair styled simply, looking every bit the confused elderly woman her lawyer wanted to portray. She moved slowly, deliberately, occasionally touching her temple as if confused. When she saw us, her mask slipped for just a moment. Pure malice flashed in her eyes before she quickly returned to her befuddled act. She whispered loudly to her lawyer, "Who are those people? They look familiar." The performance made me sick. This was the woman who had meticulously documented her poisoning campaign, who had laughed about her victim's suffering. Now she was pretending not to recognize her own son. The judge called the court to order, and Linda's lawyer immediately stood. "Your Honor, we request a competency evaluation. My client is suffering from cognitive decline and cannot adequately participate in her defense." The prosecutor objected, but the judge decided to hear testimony on the matter first. Linda's paid psychiatrist took the stand, describing supposed symptoms of dementia he'd observed during 2 brief sessions with her. During cross-examination, our prosecutor destroyed his credibility. She presented recordings from the jail where Linda discussed legal strategy in detail with her lawyer, showing clear comprehension and planning ability. The psychiatrist stammered, unable to explain the contradiction. Then came our turn. The prosecutor called me to the stand first. As I walked past Linda, she grabbed my wrist. "You're that girl who's trying to steal my recipes," she said loudly. "I don't know why you're being so mean to me." I yanked my hand away, my skin crawling from her touch. The bailiff moved closer, warning Linda to keep her hands to herself. On the stand, I detailed everything: the mysterious illnesses, finding the recipe book, the pattern of poisoning spanning decades. Linda maintained her confused act, occasionally shaking her head and muttering about not understanding. When the prosecutor showed the photos of Linda's annotated recipes, her lawyer objected. "My client doesn't remember writing these. Anyone could have added those notes." But the prosecutor was ready. She'd had a handwriting expert analyze the notes, comparing them to years of Linda's correspondence. The match was undeniable. During a recess, Marcus's brother approached us in the hallway. His wife wasn't with him. Their separation was moving forward. "Please," he begged. "Can't you see what this is doing to Mom? She's clearly not well. She's well enough to orchestrate this entire performance." I shot back. He turned to Marcus. "She's our mother. Dad would never want this." Marcus's jaw clenched. Dad knew what she was capable of. "We found his letters." His brother's face went white. "What letters?" But before Marcus could answer, Linda's supporters surrounded us. They pressed in close, voices rising, accusing us of elder abuse, of greed, of destroying the family. Security had to intervene to clear a path for us. Back in court, the prosecutor called Sarah to testify. She brought the medical records from Marcus's grandmother, laying out the pattern of mysterious illnesses. Linda's confused act wavered as Sarah spoke about her mother's suffering. "My mother trusted Linda," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her tears. "She lived in that house, ate Linda's food every day, and slowly got sicker. Linda watched it happen. She timed it. She documented it." Linda's lawyer tried to discredit Sarah, suggesting her mother's age and existing health conditions were to blame. But Sarah came prepared with her mother's medical records from before living with Linda, a clean bill of health aside from mild arthritis. The hairdresser took the stand next. The prosecutor played the recordings, Linda's voice filling the courtroom as she laughed about her project and discussed increasing doses. The elderly woman crumbled completely as Linda shot to her feet. "Those recordings are fake!" she screamed. "That witch paid her to say those things. I was helping them. They needed to be stronger." The judge banged his gavel, threatening to remove Linda if she had another outburst. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, and she sat down, but the damage was done. The entire courtroom had seen the real Linda emerge. Marcus testified next. His hands shook as he held the journal where Linda had documented her poisoning campaign. He read entries aloud, his voice breaking as he described his grandmother's symptoms, meticulously recorded in his mother's handwriting. January 15th. Mother-in-law complained of stomach cramps after dinner. Lasted approximately 3 hours. I may need to adjust the walnut oil ratio in pasta sauce. March 3rd. Successful reaction achieved with new almond flour mixture in pancakes. Hives appeared within 20 minutes. She blamed the strawberries. June 10th. Mother-in-law refusing more meals. Claims I'm poisoning her. The family believes it's dementia. Perfect cover. By the time he finished reading, several jury members were visibly disturbed. Linda had dropped all pretense of confusion, her face twisted with rage as she glared at her son. During cross-examination, Linda's lawyer tried to paint Marcus as a son manipulated by his wife, suggesting I had turned him against his mother. But Marcus stood firm. My mother systematically poisoned my wife, my grandmother, and countless other family members, he said. My wife didn't turn me against her. Her own actions did. The trial continued for 3 more days. More family members testified about mysterious illnesses linked to Linda's cooking. The prosecutor presented credit card records showing years of hidden purchases of concentrated allergens. Expert witnesses explained how calculated and deliberate the poisoning campaign had been. Linda's defense crumbled piece by piece. Her lawyer pivoted from the dementia defense to arguing that she genuinely believed she was helping, that she'd been misguided but not malicious. But the journal entries and recordings made that impossible to believe. On the final day of testimony, the prosecutor introduced a surprise witness, a woman named Catherine who had worked as Linda's housekeeper 15 years ago. She testified that she'd quit after catching Linda adding something to food meant for Marcus's grandmother. I confronted her, Catherine said. She told me I was seeing things, that I'd better keep my mouth shut if I wanted to keep getting work in this town. I was a single mother. I needed the job references, so I left quietly. She'd carried the guilt for years, especially after Marcus's grandmother died. When she heard about the trial, she knew she had to come forward. Linda's mask finally shattered completely. She began ranting about ungrateful family members, about how she tried to make them stronger, better. She accused me of being weak, of turning her son against her, of destroying her family. I gave them everything, she screamed as the bailiffs moved to restrain her. I tried to fix them. They were all so weak, so pathetic. I made them better. The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. As they dragged her out, she locked eyes with Marcus. You were always too soft, she spat. Just like your father. I should have fixed you too. Marcus flinched as if he'd been slapped. I grabbed his hand, feeling him tremble. His mother had just admitted she'd considered poisoning him too. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. When they filed back in, their faces were grim. The foreman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Multiple counts of assault, attempted poisoning, and food tampering. The witness tampering and harassment charges added years to her potential sentence. Linda showed no emotion as the verdict was read. She sat perfectly still, her face a mask of cold fury. But when the judge revoked her bail and ordered her taken into custody immediately, she exploded. You'll all regret this, she screamed as the bailiffs cuffed her. I know things about all of you. I'll destroy every last one of you. Her threats echoed in the courtroom as they dragged her away. Some of her supporters were crying. Others looked shell-shocked, finally seeing the woman they defended for who she really was. Outside the courthouse, we were swarmed by family members. Some congratulated us. Others accused us of destroying the family. Marcus's brother pushed through the crowd, his face twisted with rage. You did this, he snarled at me. You turned him against our mother. She's going to die in prison because of you. She poisoned people, I said quietly, including your wife. She made mistakes, he shouted, but she's still our mother. You don't understand because you're not your real family. Marcus stepped between us. She's more family than Mom ever was, and if you can't see that, then you're not my brother anymore. The confrontation might have escalated, but Sarah intervened, pulling us away. We drove to her house in silence, the weight of the verdict settling over us. Justice had been served, but at the cost of our family's unity. That evening, as we sat in Sarah's living room, Marcus's phone rang constantly. Family members called with reactions ranging from relief to fury. He eventually turned it off, unable to handle any bolts. What happens now? He asked, staring at the darkened screen. Sarah poured him a drink. Now we try to heal. Those who can't accept the truth will drift away. Those who can will stick together. The family will be smaller, but healthier. Over the next few weeks, the family divide solidified. Linda's supporters, led by Marcus's brother, cut us off completely. They started a fund for her appeal, maintaining she was a victim of a vindictive daughter-in-law. Some even suggested I'd somehow orchestrated the entire thing. But others came forward with their own stories. Cousins called to share memories of getting sick at family gatherings. Elderly aunts recalled Linda's mother-in-law's complaints about the food. The pattern became undeniable to all but the most determined deniers. Linda was sentenced to 15 years in prison. At her sentencing hearing, she showed no remorse. Instead, she delivered a rambling statement about ungrateful family members and her attempts to improve them. She accused me of stealing her son, of destroying her life's work. I only wanted to help, she said, her voice cold. They were all so weak. I was making them stronger, and this is how they repay me. The judge was unmoved. He called her actions calculated, cruel, and unconscionable, noting the particular evil of using food, something that should nourish and comfort, as a weapon. As they led Linda away, she turned to look at us one last time. The hatred in her eyes was chilling. Even facing 15 years in prison, she showed no sign of understanding what she'd done wrong. Marcus and I left the courthouse hand in hand. The ordeal was over, but its effects would linger. We'd lost half our family, gained terrible knowledge about someone we'd trusted, and learned just how far someone would go to maintain control. But we'd also found strength we didn't know we had. We'd stood up to a master manipulator, exposed decades of abuse, and secured justice for victims who'd suffered in silence. We'd protected future victims from Linda's twisted version of love. The family gatherings would be smaller now. Sunday dinners would happen at Sarah's house, with food we could trust. The empty chairs would be a reminder of the price of Linda's actions, but also of our courage in stopping her. As we drove home, Marcus squeezed my hand. I'm proud of us, he said. Dad would be proud too. I thought about his father's unsent letters, his attempts to document Linda's behavior. He'd known something was wrong but hadn't been able to stop it. We'd finished what he'd started. We did it for all of them, I said. For your grandmother, for all the cousins who got sick, for everyone who suffered in silence. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. And for us, for our future. Our kids will never have to fear their grandmother's cooking. It was a sobering thought, that we'd had to protect our future children from their own grandmother. But Linda had made that choice when she decided to use food as a weapon. We'd simply held her accountable. The road ahead would be difficult. Family relationships would need to be rebuilt. Trust would come slowly. The wounds Linda had inflicted would take time to heal. But for the first time in years, we could eat without fear. We could attend family gatherings without wondering what hidden ingredients might harm us. We could build relationships based on honesty instead of manipulation. Linda had tried to control us through poison and fear. Instead, she'd taught us the power of truth and the importance of protecting those we love. Her legacy wouldn't be the family she'd tried to shape through cruelty, but the stronger, more honest family that emerged from exposing her crimes. As we pulled into our driveway, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The woman who'd terrorized us with toxic love was gone. The family that remained might be fractured, but it was free from her poisonous influence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be appeals to face, family rifts to navigate, and healing to pursue. But tonight we were were safe. Tonight, we were free. Tonight, justice had been served. The irony wasn't lost on me. Linda had wanted the perfect family, controlled and shaped to her specifications. Instead, her actions had created a family that valued truth over appearance, safety over tradition, and justice over blind loyalty. In trying to fix us, she'd broken herself. And in stopping her, we'd found strength we never knew we possessed. The morning after sentencing, I woke to pounding on our front door. Marcus jumped out of bed grabbing a baseball bat. Through the peephole, we saw Marcus's cousin Nicholas, Linda's most devoted supporter. Marcus opened the door cautiously. Nicholas shoved past him, his face red with fury. He threw a manila envelope at me, papers scattering across the floor. Congratulations, he spat. You've destroyed everything. Linda's house is being foreclosed. Her medical bills from jail are astronomical. The family home where we all grew up is gone because of you. I bent to gather the papers. Legal notices, medical invoices, bank statements. Linda had apparently spent her savings on her defense, leaving nothing for property taxes or maintenance. That's not our fault, Marcus said firmly. Nicholas laughed bitterly. Everything is your fault. You couldn't just accept her love. You had to make it into something sinister. He stormed out before we could respond. Marcus locked the door behind him, then helped me collect the scattered documents. Among them was a handwritten note from Linda, smuggled out through Nicholas. The note was rambling, filled with accusations and threats. She claimed to have insurance against us, secrets that would destroy our lives. She demanded we recant our testimony, get her released, or face consequences. We took the note straight to the prosecutor. She added it to Linda's file, evidence of continued harassment from prison. But she warned us that Linda's supporters might escalate their tactics. That afternoon, Sarah called with disturbing news. Several family members had received similar notes from Linda, each tailored to their specific fears. She was trying to manipulate them from behind bars, using personal information as weapons. Marcus's brother had received threats about his divorce proceedings. Emma got warnings about her college transcripts. Even elderly relatives received ominous messages about their medical histories. She's trying to regain control, Sarah said during an emergency family meeting at her house. Even from prison, she's attempting to puppet master everyone. The group that gathered was smaller than before, only those who'd stood by us through the trial. We compared notes, finding patterns in Linda's threats. She claimed to have documents, recordings, evidence of various family secrets. Marcus's jaw tightened as he read through the messages. She's lying. This is what she does. Creates fear to maintain power. But some family members were genuinely frightened. Linda had always been the keeper of family information, the one who remembered everyone's mistakes and indiscretions. Now she was weaponizing that knowledge. Patricia appeared at Sarah's door while we were meeting, demanding to be let in. Sarah tried to close the door, but Patricia wedged her foot in the gap. Linda has something important to tell you all, she announced, waving another envelope. She's willing to forgive everything if you just listen. Sarah finally got the door closed and locked. Through the window, we watched Patricia pace the porch, occasionally shouting about family loyalty and forgiveness. Someone called the police and she left before they arrived. The harassment intensified over the following days. Our mailbox was stuffed with printed emails from Linda's supporters, accusing us of elder abuse. Someone created a social media page called Justice for Linda, sharing old family photos with captions painting her as a devoted grandmother wrongly imprisoned. Marcus tried to get the page taken down, but new ones kept appearing. The narrative they pushed was consistent. I was an outsider who destroyed a loving family, turned a son against his mother, and sent an innocent woman to prison. Catherine, the former housekeeper who testified, called me one evening in tears. They're calling my work, she said, saying I lied in court, that I should be fired, I might lose my job. The prosecutor filed additional charges against Linda for witness intimidation, but the damage was spreading. Linda's network of supporters was doing her bidding, creating chaos she could no longer create herself. Then came the package. It arrived on a Thursday. No return address. Inside was a photo album. Pictures of Marcus throughout his childhood, each one annotated in Linda's handwriting. But the notes weren't loving memories. They were criticisms, plans, manipulations. Under a photo of 5-year-old Marcus, too sensitive, must toughen him up. Start with food challenges. By his high school graduation, still too attached. I need to control his relationships better. The final pages showed photos of me from before I'd even met Marcus. Pictures taken at my college, at my first job, at coffee shops. Linda had been watching me, studying me, long before we'd officially met. Marcus's hands shook as he turned the pages. His entire life had been a project to her, something to control and shape. The album was her confession, her pride in decades of manipulation. We gave the album to the prosecutor, but the psychological damage was done. Marcus couldn't sleep, haunted by the realization that his mother had orchestrated aspects of his life he'd thought were his own choices. Sarah discovered more evidence in Linda's abandoned house. Hidden in the attic were boxes of documents, not just about family members, but about anyone who'd crossed Linda's path. Neighbors, co-workers, Marcus's teachers. She'd kept files on everyone, documenting weaknesses and secrets. Among the files was correspondence with other mothers who'd had difficult daughters-in-law. They'd exchanged tips on manipulation tactics, discussing ways to break up marriages and regain control of their sons. Linda had been part of an entire network of controlling mothers. The revelation sent shockwaves through our community. Some of the women named in the correspondence were respected members of local churches and charities. Their own families began questioning past illnesses and relationship problems. Marcus's brother appeared at our door one night, soaking wet from rain. His wife had left him, taking their children. The divorce papers cited his refusal to acknowledge the abuse she'd suffered. I need somewhere to stay, he said quietly, not meeting our eyes. Marcus hesitated, then stepped aside. His brother entered, a broken man finally seeing the truth he'd denied for so long. He sat at our kitchen table, head in his hands. She used to make me special food when I was little, he said. Said it would make me strong like her, not weak like Dad. I never questioned why I got sick so often. The pattern was becoming clearer. Linda had experimented on her own children first, perfecting her methods before moving on to others. Both sons had mysterious childhood illnesses that doctors couldn't explain. As more family members came forward with their own revelations, Linda's prison communications became increasingly desperate. She offered bribes, threatened lawsuits, promised to reveal where she'd hidden money if people would support her appeal. Nicholas organized a visit to Linda in prison, bringing several family members she'd been manipulating. They expected to find a frail, suffering grandmother. Instead, they found Linda in full control of her faculties, barking orders and making demands. "You're all weak," she told them when they refused to help her escape. "I made this family strong, and without me, you're nothing." The visit was recorded, and Nicholas shared the audio with everyone. Linda's mask had finally slipped completely, revealing the narcissistic manipulator beneath. Even her most devoted supporters couldn't deny the venom in her voice. Marcus's brother moved in with us temporarily while he figured out his next steps. He spent hours reading through the evidence we'd compiled, finally understanding the scope of his mother's actions. "I helped her," he said one evening, staring at photos of family gatherings. "All those times I defended her, dismissed people's concerns, I enabled this." The guilt was eating at him, but it was also opening his eyes. He started reaching out to his estranged wife, acknowledging what she'd endured, apologizing for his blindness. Patricia's harassment escalated until she was arrested for trespassing at Sarah's house. In her car, police found detailed plans to break Linda out of prison, along with forged documents intended to discredit our testimony. The conspiracy went deeper than we'd imagined. Linda had cultivated a network of supporters over decades, people who owed her favors or feared her knowledge. Now they were acting as her proxies, trying to maintain her control from the outside. But the network was crumbling. Each arrest, each revealed plot, each piece of evidence weakened Linda's influence. Family members who'd been neutral started choosing sides, most landing firmly against Linda as the truth became undeniable. Marcus found more letters from his father, hidden in a safety deposit box we didn't know existed. His father had documented Linda's behavior for years, gathering evidence he'd never had the courage to use. One letter, dated just months before his death, was addressed to Marcus. "Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've finally seen the truth about your mother. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to protect you. Don't let her destroy your life like she destroyed mine." The letter detailed years of psychological abuse, controlling behavior, and suspected poisonings. Marcus's father had lived in fear, staying only to protect his children. His death, officially a heart attack, suddenly seemed suspicious. We brought the letters to the prosecutor, but too much time had passed to investigate his death properly. Still, it added another layer to Linda's pattern of abuse. Emma organized a support group for Linda's victims. The first meeting drew over 20 people: family members, former friends, neighbors who'd experienced mysterious illnesses after Linda's dinner parties. The stories they shared painted a picture of decades of calculated harm. One woman revealed that her daughter had developed severe allergies after spending summers with Linda as a babysitting client. Another talked about her husband's mysterious illness that doctors couldn't diagnose, which cleared up only after they moved away from Linda's neighborhood. The support group became a healing space, but also a revelation of how far Linda's poison had spread, literally and figuratively. Her need for control had damaged dozens of lives. Linda's lawyer filed appeal after appeal, each one dismissed. Her behavior in prison wasn't helping. She'd been caught trying to poison her cellmate's food with cleaning products, claiming she was helping her build immunity. The incident added years to her sentence and moved her to solitary confinement. Even isolated, she continued writing letters, though most were now intercepted and added to her file. Marcus slowly began processing his trauma. He'd have good days where he felt free from her influence, then bad days where every childhood memory felt tainted. The brother who'd moved in with us became an unexpected source of support, both of them finally able to discuss their shared experiences. "Remember when she made us eat those special vitamins?" his brother asked one evening. "I found the bottles in her bathroom. They were expired prescription substances she'd ground up." Each revelation was another piece of the puzzle, showing how Linda had experimented on her own children to perfect her poisoning techniques. The vitamins had caused stomach issues, headaches, and behavioral changes that she'd blamed on growing pains. Sarah compiled all the evidence into a comprehensive document, creating a timeline of Linda's crimes spanning 40 years. The document became crucial for other victims seeking validation and understanding of their experiences. Some family members who'd initially supported Linda began reaching out, ashamed of their stance during the trial. They'd been manipulated too, they realized, turned against us by Linda's careful campaigns of misinformation. Marcus's uncle called to apologize for the horrible things he'd said. "She had me convinced you were evil," he admitted. "She'd been telling me lies about you for years, setting the stage for this moment." The reconciliations were slow and painful. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But gradually, the family Linda had torn apart began finding ways to heal. Catherine got her job back after the prosecutor intervened, explaining the witness intimidation she'd faced. She became an advocate for other domestic workers afraid to report abuse, using her experience to help others find their voices. The investigation into Linda's network uncovered similar cases across the state, other controlling mothers using food as a weapon, sharing techniques and covering for each other. It led to several more arrests and a broader awareness of this insidious form of abuse. Marcus and I attended every day of Patricia's trial. She was convicted of conspiracy and harassment, receiving 2 years in prison. During her sentencing, she screamed about loyalty and family, still unable to see how Linda had manipulated her. Nicholas finally broke free from Linda's influence after Patricia's conviction. He came to us with boxes of documents Linda had asked him to hide, more evidence of her crimes, including plans to poison witnesses if the trial hadn't gone her way. "I'm sorry," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I was so blinded by her. She made me feel special, like I was the only one who understood her. I see now that was just another manipulation." The documents revealed that Linda had been planning to expand her poisoning campaign if acquitted. She had lists of targets, detailed plans, and had been stockpiling concentrated allergens and toxins. We held a family memorial for all of Linda's victims, including Marcus's grandmother and potentially his father. It was a somber gathering, acknowledging the pain and loss Linda had caused over decades. Marcus spoke about breaking the cycle, ensuring Linda's poison, both literal and metaphorical, ended with her imprisonment. His brother talked about facing hard truths and choosing healing over denial. As Linda's appeals continued failing, her letters became more desperate and disjointed. She claimed to be dying, to to have cancer, to be suffering from the same dementia she faked during trial. Prison medical reports showed she was in perfect health, just aging normally in confinement. The family home where Marcus grew up was eventually sold. During the final walkthrough, we found more evidence hidden in the walls. Journals dating back to Linda's childhood, showing this behavior had deep roots. Her own mother had been controlling and abusive, using similar tactics. Linda had learned and perfected these methods, passing trauma down through generations until we'd finally broken the chain. Marcus decided to use his inheritance from the house sale to fund a scholarship for students studying food safety and allergen awareness, something positive from all the pain Linda had caused. The ripple effects continued. Other families began examining mysterious illnesses and relationship problems in a new light. Support groups formed in neighboring towns. Awareness grew about this particular form of domestic abuse. Linda's story became a cautionary tale in medical and legal circles. Conferences discussed the case, examining how someone could poison family members for decades without detection. New protocols were developed for investigating suspicious patterns of illness. On the first anniversary of Linda's sentencing, we held a celebration of survival at Sarah's house. The gathering was smaller than old family events, but filled with genuine warmth and trust. Marcus's brother had reconciled with his wife and children. They attended together, their relationship stronger for having faced the truth. Other family members had found their own paths to healing. We shared a meal where everyone knew exactly what ingredients were used, where food was safe and prepared with love instead of manipulation. It was a simple gathering but profound in its honesty. Linda continued serving her sentence, increasingly isolated as her remaining supporters faced their own legal consequences, or simply moved on. Her empire of control had crumbled completely. Marcus and I started planning for our future, including the children we hoped to have. They would grow up in a family free from Linda's influence, where food meant nourishment and love meant support, not control. The last letter from Linda arrived on a Tuesday. It was short, her handwriting shaky. "You'll regret this when I'm gone." We gave it to the prosecutor to add to her file. There was no regret, only relief that her reign of terror was over. The family she'd tried to control through fear and poison had found strength in truth and justice. As I prepared dinner that evening, measuring ingredients without fear, I thought about how far we'd come. Linda had tried to break us with her twisted love. Instead, she forged us into something stronger, a family bound by survival, truth, and genuine care for each other. The woman who'd poisoned food to control people would spend her remaining years eating prison meals she couldn't tamper with. It was a fitting end to her story of manipulation and abuse. Our story, however, was just beginning. Free from Linda's shadow, we could finally build the life we'd always wanted, surrounded by a family who chose love over control, honesty over manipulation. The poison had been purged. The healing could truly begin. My sister uninvited my breastfeeding toddler after I spent $1,200 preparing for her wedding, then smirked. "I'm honestly relieved. I didn't want your attention-seeking spawn there anyway." When I stood up for my kids, she scoffed. "You'll regret that." I didn't say a word. That was 8 months ago. Yesterday, she had to be escorted out of a courthouse screaming everyone was against her. My sister Emma and I have always had a complicated relationship, but I never thought she would stoop this low. When she got engaged to her fiancé Marcus last year, I was genuinely happy for her. Despite our differences, I wanted to support her on what should be the biggest day of her life. Emma has always been the golden child in our family. She's beautiful, charismatic, and has never had to work particularly hard for anything. Meanwhile, I've always been the responsible one, the one who helped take care of our aging parents and worked 3 jobs to put myself through nursing school. I have 3 kids. Lily, who's 8, Mason, who's 6, and baby Sophie, who just turned 2. They're good kids, but Emma has never been particularly fond of children, often making comments about preferring her life peaceful and organized. When Emma told me about her wedding plans, she mentioned it would be a sophisticated, elegant affair at an upscale venue. The save-the-date cards went out 6 months ago, and my whole family was included. The first red flag came when Emma announced her wedding would be adults only, no children under 16 allowed. I was surprised, but when I mentioned this to my mom, she looked confused and said Emma had told her my kids were still invited because they were immediate family. I asked Emma directly, and she confirmed my children were still welcome despite the adults-only policy. She said she was making an exception for her nieces and nephew because they were special to her. I was relieved and started making arrangements, including buying expensive outfits for all 3 kids and booking a hotel room for the weekend. 2 weeks ago, Emma called me with what she described as a tiny change to the wedding plans. She explained that Marcus's family had been asking questions about why some children were invited when others weren't, causing unnecessary drama. To keep things fair, she had decided all children needed to be excluded, including mine. I was stunned. Not only had she waited until the last minute, but she seemed to expect me to just accept it. When I pointed out that I had already made arrangements and purchased outfits, she offered to reimburse me for the clothes, but said the hotel room was my choice. I asked if she understood this meant I might not be able to attend, since finding a babysitter for an entire weekend, especially for a 2-year-old who still breastfeeds, would be nearly impossible. Emma's response was that I was being dramatic, and every other parent was figuring it out. I spent the next week desperately trying to find childcare options. My parents are too elderly to handle 3 young children for a full weekend. My in-laws live across the country. The few babysitters I trust were unavailable. The cost of hiring multiple sitters would have been over $800, which we couldn't afford on top of wedding expenses. When I explained this to Emma, she suggested I could pop in for the ceremony and skip the reception, or my husband could stay home while I attended alone. I told her that splitting up our family didn't feel right, especially when she had originally assured me my children were welcome. Emma's response shocked me. She said she had been having second thoughts about including my kids anyway, because Lily had been disruptive at our cousin's wedding last year, and she was worried about Sophie having a meltdown during the ceremony. She claimed she was actually relieved to have an excuse to uninvite them. I was furious. The disruption she referenced was Lily quietly asking me for a snack during cocktail hour, maybe 30 seconds. Sophie is an incredibly well-behaved toddler who rarely cries in public. It was clear Emma had been looking for reasons to exclude my children all along. I told Emma that if my kids weren't welcome, then neither was I. She immediately started backtracking, saying I was misunderstanding her, but the damage was done. She had made it clear that my children were seen as potential problems rather than beloved family members. Emma tried to guilt me, saying I was choosing my kids over her, and that I would regret missing her wedding over something so trivial. She brought our parents into it, and they initially tried to convince me to attend without the kids. But when I explained exactly what Emma had said, my mom's tone changed completely. The situation escalated when Emma posted on social media about how disappointed she was that some family members were making her wedding about them. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew. Several relatives reached out, and I learned Emma had been complaining to anyone who would listen about how I was being selfish and unreasonable. My husband fully supports my decision not to attend. He pointed out that Emma had shown her true feelings about our children, and attending would be endorsing her behavior. We've also spent over $1,200 on wedding-related expenses that we can't get refunded. Yesterday, Emma called me crying, saying she didn't want this conflict to ruin our relationship. She offered to make another exception for just my kids, but I told her it was too late. The fact that she was willing to exclude them in the first place showed me exactly how she views my family. Now my entire extended family is divided. Some think I'm being too harsh and should attend for family harmony. Others believe Emma crossed a line by uninviting my children after promising they could come. Emma has been texting me daily, alternating between apologizing and accusing me of trying to ruin her special day. She's even suggested I'm jealous of her wedding because I eloped. The latest message was from Marcus, asking me to reconsider because Emma has been an emotional wreck. But here's what nobody knows yet. What I discovered about Emma's real motivations changes everything, and what I'm planning to do next will shock the entire family. I've been going through old family photos for a scrapbook project when I found it. Tucked between pictures from our childhood was a letter Emma had written but never sent, dated just after my wedding 8 years ago. My hands shook as I read her words describing how unfair it was that I'd found happiness first, how I'd stolen the spotlight by getting married before her, and how she couldn't stand seeing me with children when she wasn't ready for them yet. The letter detailed her resentment about our parents praising my choices while she was still single. She wrote about feeling overshadowed at family gatherings where my kids were the center of attention. Most disturbing was a line about how she would make sure her wedding would be everything mine wasn't, and that she would finally have her moment without my attention-seeking spawn ruining it. I photographed the letter with my phone before carefully placing it back. My mind raced as I connected dots I'd been too naive to see before. Emma's sudden engagement after years of casual dating, her insistence on a massive, expensive wedding that would dwarf my simple courthouse ceremony, the way she'd been systematically creating situations where my children looked problematic. That evening, I called my cousin Sarah, who'd hosted the wedding where Lily allegedly caused a disruption. Sarah laughed when I asked about it. She said Lily had been an angel, and the only issue was Emma complaining loudly about children being present, making other guests uncomfortable. Sarah had actually asked Emma to lower her voice because she was disturbing the ceremony more than any child. Armed with this information, I reached out to other family members who'd attended recent gatherings. A pattern emerged. At our aunt's birthday party, Emma had claimed Mason knocked over a vase, but our uncle confirmed he'd seen Emma bump the table herself while Mason was across the room. At Christmas dinner, Emma said Sophie's crying ruined dessert, but my grandmother remembered Sophie had been napping in the guest room the entire time. I realized Emma had been building a false narrative about my children for months, laying groundwork to justify excluding them. But why? The letter made it clear. She couldn't stand sharing attention with them. Her wedding was meant to be her triumph over me, and my children's presence would remind everyone that I had something she didn't. The next morning, I received a text from Marcus asking if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, curious about what Emma's fiancé might reveal. At the cafe, Marcus looked exhausted. He admitted Emma had been acting strangely for weeks, obsessing over every detail and becoming increasingly hostile about anything involving my family. Marcus confessed he'd overheard Emma on the phone with her maid of honor, laughing about how she'd finally put me in my place, and that I would learn what it feels like to be excluded. He was disturbed by her vindictiveness, but felt trapped so close to the wedding. When I showed him the photographed letter, his face went pale. He revealed that Emma had been lying about his family questioning the children policy. His relatives had actually expressed disappointment about the adults-only rule, especially his sister who wanted to bring her toddler. Emma had told them all children were banned, using my kids as an excuse, saying they'd caused problems at other events. Marcus asked for time to process everything. I understood his position, but made it clear I wouldn't be attending regardless. As I left the cafe, I noticed Emma's car in the parking lot. She'd been watching us. Within an hour, my phone exploded with messages. Emma accused me of trying to steal her fiancé and poison him against her. She called our mother, claiming I was sabotaging her relationship out of jealousy. She posted on social media about family members who couldn't stand to see others happy, and tagged several relatives to ensure maximum visibility. My mother called me, confused and upset. I drove to my parents' house with the photographed letter and screenshots of my conversations with family members about Emma's lies. As my mother read through everything, her expression shifted from confusion to disappointment to anger. My father, who'd been quietly listening, finally spoke up. He'd noticed Emma's behavior changing over the past year, but attributed it to wedding stress. Now he saw the pattern too. They decided to confront Emma together, but she refused to meet with them, claiming she was too traumatized by my betrayal. The family group chat became a battlefield. Emma's supporters, working with limited information, accused me of being petty and jealous. I remained silent, following my husband's advice to let Emma's own actions speak for themselves. Sure enough, her increasingly erratic messages began to concern even her staunchest defenders. Emma made a critical mistake when she sent a group message meant only for her maid of honor, detailing her plan to expose me at the rehearsal dinner for being a bitter, jealous sister who couldn't stand her success. The message included cruel comments about my appearance, my husband's job, and my children's behavior, all lies designed to humiliate me. Family members who'd been neutral began reaching out privately, expressing shock at Emma's words. My aunt, who'd been pressuring me to attend, apologized and admitted she'd been blind to Emma's manipulation. My grandmother, the family matriarch, requested a video call with both Emma and me. During the call, Emma tried to maintain her victim narrative, but our grandmother wasn't fooled. She asked pointed questions about specific incidents, and Emma's stories began to unravel. When confronted about the vase incident, Emma claimed she couldn't remember. When asked about Sophie crying at Christmas, she became defensive and accused everyone of ganging up on her. Our grandmother ended the call with a clear message. Family meant treating each other with love and respect, not manipulation and lies. She said she was disappointed in Emma's behavior and would not be attending a wedding built on cruelty toward children. Emma's response was to uninvite our grandmother, claiming she was choosing sides. This decision shocked even Emma's most loyal supporters. Our elderly grandmother, who'd been saving for months to buy a special gift for Emma, was devastated but stood firm in her principles. Marcus reached out again, this time to inform me he'd postponed the wedding indefinitely. He couldn't marry someone capable of such cruelty toward family, especially children. He discovered Emma had been lying about other things too. Their finances, her relationships with coworkers, even small daily interactions were filtered through her need to be seen as perfect. Emma blamed me for Marcus's decision, sending increasingly unhinged messages about how I'd destroyed her life and stolen her happiness. I blocked her number but heard from others that she was spiraling, calling vendors to cancel services and demanding deposits back, claiming the wedding was off because of family sabotage. My parents tried to intervene, offering to pay for therapy if Emma would acknowledge her behavior. She refused, insisting everyone else was the problem. She moved out of the apartment she shared with Marcus and back into our parents' house, where she spent days posting cryptic messages about betrayal and fake family members. The truth continued to surface. Emma's maid of honor, feeling guilty, reached out to apologize. She admitted Emma had been planning to announce her pregnancy at the reception, a pregnancy that didn't exist. It was meant to be the ultimate attention grab, ensuring all focus stayed on her even after the wedding. She'd planned to miscarry a few weeks later for additional sympathy. This revelation horrified everyone, especially Marcus, who realized how deeply disturbed Emma's behavior had become. He thanked me for inadvertently saving him from a marriage built on lies and manipulation. He began therapy to process the deception and started rebuilding his life. Meanwhile, my children remained blissfully unaware of the drama their aunt had created around them. We continued our normal routine: school, playtime, bedtime stories. Their innocence reminded me why protecting them from Emma's toxicity was the right choice, regardless of the family fallout. Slowly, the family began to heal. Those who'd been deceived by Emma's lies apologized and worked to rebuild trust. We organized small gatherings where my children were explicitly welcomed and celebrated. My parents, freed from Emma's manipulation, became more involved grandparents, creating memories they'd missed while trying to appease their difficult daughter. Emma eventually moved to another city, claiming she needed a fresh start away from toxic people. She maintained her victim narrative on social media, but most family members had unfollowed or blocked her. Last I heard, she was planning another engagement to someone she'd known for only a few months, already describing it as her real chance at happiness. The wedding that never happened became a turning point for our family. It exposed years of hidden resentment and manipulation, but also brought us closer together. We learned to recognize toxic behavior and stand up against it, even when it came from someone we loved. My children continue to thrive, surrounded by family members who truly love and appreciate them. They don't know about their aunt's attempts to exclude them, and someday when they're older, I'll explain in age-appropriate terms why we don't see her anymore. For now, they're simply happy, loved, and protected, exactly as they should be. The expensive outfits I'd bought for the wedding found new purposes: holiday photos, school pictures, and cousins' birthday parties where my children were genuinely welcomed. The money we saved on wedding expenses went into their college funds, a much better investment than attending a celebration of deception. Looking back, Emma's wedding exclusion was a gift in disguise. It revealed her true character and protected my family from years of subtle abuse disguised as family obligation. Sometimes the best wedding gift you can give someone is the truth, even when it means the wedding never happens at all. The morning after blocking Emma's number, I woke to find my front porch covered in wedding magazines, each one defaced with red marker. Pages featuring happy families were torn out, and photos of children had their faces scratched through. My husband discovered them when he went to get the newspaper, and we quickly gathered everything before the kids could see. Our security camera footage showed Emma dropping them off at 3 a.m., wearing sunglasses and a hoodie despite the darkness. She'd spent hours creating this disturbing display, which only reinforced my decision to keep her away from my children. I documented everything and stored the magazines in our garage, unsure what to do with them, but sensing I might need evidence of her escalating behavior. My husband installed additional security cameras that afternoon, concerned about what Emma might do next. 3 days later, my mother called in tears. Emma had shown up at their house with a stack of printed emails and text messages, claiming they were from me. The messages portrayed me as someone who'd been plotting against Emma for years, filled with cruel comments about her appearance, her relationships, and her life choices. My mother knew immediately they were fake. The writing style was nothing like mine, and several messages referenced events that never happened. But Emma's performance was convincing enough that my father initially wondered if there might be some truth to them. I drove over immediately with my laptop, showing them my actual email account and text history. The timestamps on Emma's fabricated messages didn't match any gaps in my real communications. Some were supposedly sent while I was in labor with Sophie, others during family vacations where I had no phone service. My tech-savvy cousin Ben examined the fake messages that evening. He discovered they'd been created using a basic photo editing app, with numerous tells that revealed their fraudulent nature. The fonts didn't match, the spacing was off, and Emma had even misspelled my email address in several headers. We decided not to confront Emma directly about the forgeries. Instead, my parents simply told her they didn't believe the messages were real and wouldn't discuss them further. Emma's response was to accuse them of favoritism, claiming they always took my side because I'd given them grandchildren. The next escalation came through my workplace. I received a call from my nursing supervisor asking about a concerning complaint. Someone claiming to be a patient's family member had called to report that I'd been discussing patient information on social media and making inappropriate comments about my sister's mental health. Fortunately, my supervisor knew me well enough to be skeptical. The caller had refused to provide specific details or identify which patient they were related to. They'd also made the mistake of claiming I'd posted things on days when I wasn't even working. We both knew it was Emma, though she'd tried to disguise her voice. My workplace took the false complaint seriously, documenting everything and alerting security to watch for Emma. They also reviewed their phone records, finding that the complaint call had come from a number registered to Emma's best friend, McCatherine, who was also her maid of honor. That weekend, we attended my nephew's birthday party on my husband's side. It was a relief to be around family drama-free until my sister-in-law pulled me aside. She'd received a Facebook message from someone claiming to be a concerned family friend, warning her about my history of causing scenes at family events. The message included twisted versions of real events, like claiming I'd ruined Emma's engagement party by forcing everyone to look at photos of my children, when in reality, I'd simply shown a few pictures when asked. It also mentioned completely fictional incidents, like me supposedly getting hammered at a baby shower I'd never attended. My sister-in-law had immediately recognized the writing style as Emma's. Certain phrases and dramatic expressions were identical to posts Emma had made on social media. She'd screenshot everything before blocking the fake account, which disappeared within hours. We discovered Emma had created multiple fake social media profiles, using them to contact various family members and friends with different versions of her twisted narrative. Some received messages about my supposed jealousy, others heard about my attention-seeking behavior, and a few were warned about my children's destructive tendencies. Most people saw through the deception, but a few distant relatives who didn't know us well began declining invitations to events where my family would be present. It hurt to realize Emma's lies had influenced some people, even if they were relationships that weren't particularly close. The situation reached a new low when Lily came home from school upset. Her teacher had received an anonymous letter claiming I was an unfit mother who left my children unsupervised and exposed them to inappropriate content. The letter was filled with enough accurate details about our family to seem credible at first glance. Thankfully, Lily's teacher knew us well and recognized the accusations as false. She taught both Lily and Mason, seen me volunteer countless times, and knew I was a devoted parent. She immediately reported the letter to the principal and gave me a copy. The handwriting was disguised, but certain phrases gave Emma away. She'd used the same unusual terms she'd used in text to me, like calling children spawn and referring to normal childhood behavior as chaos-inducing actions. The letter also contained the same grammatical quirks Emma always made when emotional. The school took the matter seriously, especially when I explained the family situation. They documented the incident and increased security measures, adding our family to a watch list in case Emma tried to approach the children directly. The principal assured me they'd seen similar situations before and knew how to protect students from unstable family members. My husband and I had difficult conversations with Lily and Mason about safety, explaining in simple terms that Aunt Emma wasn't feeling well and might say confusing things. We practiced what to do if she approached them, emphasizing they should find a trusted adult immediately. It broke my heart to see confusion in their innocent faces. 2 weeks passed with relative quiet, making me hope Emma had finally exhausted herself. Then Marcus contacted me with disturbing news. Emma had been calling his workplace, telling his colleagues he'd left her for another woman and destroyed her life. She'd even contacted his mother, spinning elaborate tales about his cruelty. Marcus's employer, a small accounting firm, was understanding but concerned. They'd had to field multiple calls from Emma, each more dramatic than the last. His boss suggested he might need to pursue a restraining order if the harassment continued, as it was affecting their business. His mother, who'd never particularly liked Emma, saw through the lies immediately. She'd always found Emma self-centered and had warned Marcus about rushing into marriage. Now she felt vindicated, but took no pleasure in being right, only sadness for what her son had endured. Emma's next move targeted my husband's family business. They received received a scathing online review from a customer claiming their service was terrible and that they employed negligent parents who abandoned their children. The review was posted at 2 a.m. and contained details only Emma would know about our family structure. My father-in-law, who ran the business with my husband, was furious. They'd built their reputation over 20 years, and while one false review wouldn't destroy them, it was still damaging. They reported it to the platform, but removing fake reviews was notoriously difficult. In response, regular customers who knew our family began posting positive reviews to counteract Emma's lies. The outpouring of support was touching, with many mentioning what wonderful parents we were and how much our children were loved. Emma's plan had backfired, actually generating positive publicity. The pattern continued for weeks. Emma would strike out in some new way, and we'd have to do damage control. She sent anonymous letters to our neighbors claiming we were running an illegal daycare. She called my children's pediatrician pretending to be me, trying to cancel appointments. She even attempted to access my nursing license information online. Each action was carefully calculated to cause maximum disruption while maintaining plausible deniability. Emma never used her real name, always attacked from new angles, and chose targets that would affect our daily lives. It was exhausting defending against an enemy who had nothing but time and rage. My parents bore the brunt of Emma's direct anger. She'd show up at their house at random times, alternating between tearful apologies and venomous accusations. They changed their locks after finding her in their kitchen one morning, claiming she still had a right to be there as their daughter. During one particularly bad confrontation, Emma accused them of destroying her life by having me first. She claimed they'd never wanted her, that I was always the favorite, and that they'd sabotaged her relationships by comparing everyone to me. The delusions were so deep that my parents finally accepted she needed professional help. They attempted to organize an intervention with the help of a family counselor. Emma agreed to attend what she thought was a family meeting to discuss reconciliation. When she realized it was actually an intervention, she exploded, accusing everyone of conspiring against her and storming out. The counselor, who'd seen similar situations, warned us that Emma was showing signs of severe personality disorder traits exacerbated by stress. Without professional help, she would likely continue escalating until she either faced legal consequences or experienced a major life crisis that forced self-reflection. Meanwhile, life had to continue. My children needed normalcy, so we maintained routines while staying vigilant. We attended school events, had play dates, and celebrated small moments. I refused to let Emma's darkness overshadow their childhood, even as we dealt with her chaos behind the scenes. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Victoria, one of Emma's former coworkers, reached out to me through LinkedIn. She'd left the company months earlier, partly due to Emma's behavior, and had been following the social media drama with growing concern. Victoria revealed that Emma had been let go from her job 3 months before the wedding incident. She'd been caught falsifying expense reports and lying about client meetings. Rather than admit wrongdoing, Emma had created an elaborate story about being sabotaged by jealous colleagues, including Victoria. The job loss explained so much. Emma had hidden it from everyone, maintaining the facade of success while her life crumbled. The wedding had become her chance to prove she was still winning, still the golden child. My children's exclusion was really about eliminating reminders of her failures. Victoria had documented Emma's workplace behavior extensively, having learned to protect herself after Emma tried to blame her for missing reports. She shared emails where Emma admitted to lying about various things, always justifying it as necessary to maintain her image. Armed with this new information, my parents confronted Emma about her job. She initially denied it, then claimed she'd quit to focus on wedding planning. When presented with evidence, she finally admitted the truth, but insisted it was still everyone else's fault for not supporting her enough. The revelation about her job led to other admissions. Emma had been living off credit cards and loans, funding her lavish lifestyle and wedding plans with money she didn't have. She'd hidden bills from Marcus, intercepted overdue notices, and even taken out cards in his name without permission. Marcus, who'd been trying to untangle their finances, was shocked by the extent of the deception. What he'd thought were wedding expenses were actually Emma paying off secret debts. The elaborate venue, designer dress, and luxury honeymoon were all funded by fraud. My parents, who'd given Emma money for wedding expenses, discovered she'd used it to pay minimum payments on maxed out credit cards. They'd been enabling her facade without knowing it, funding her lies while she accused me of jealousy over her supposed success. The financial revelations changed family dynamics significantly. Those who'd believed Emma's portrayal of me as jealous of her success now saw the truth. She'd been projecting her own failures onto me, creating a narrative where I was the bitter sister to hide her own downward spiral. Emma's response to being exposed was to double down on her victim narrative. She claimed everyone had impossible standards, that society had failed her, and that she'd been driven to desperation by lack of support. She refused to acknowledge how her lies had hurt others. My grandmother, who'd been deeply hurt by Emma's behavior, made a decision that shocked everyone. She removed Emma from her will, stating that she couldn't leave money to someone who would use it to hurt family. The modest inheritance Emma had been counting on was redistributed among grandchildren who showed love and respect for family. This financial blow sent Emma into a spiral. She began posting increasingly erratic content on social media, mixing conspiracy theories about family betrayal with vague threats about revealing the truth about everyone. Most family members blocked her, but we monitored her public posts for safety reasons. The situation reached a critical point when Emma showed up at Mason's school during pickup time. She approached him on the playground, trying to give him a gift and telling him his mommy was keeping secrets. A vigilant teacher intervened immediately, recognizing Emma from the photos we'd provided. Mason was confused but unharmed, and the school handled the situation perfectly. They kept Emma in the office while calling me and law enforcement. By the time I arrived, shaking with fear and anger, the police were already documenting the incident. Emma tried to claim she just wanted to give her nephew a birthday present, though his birthday was months away. The gift was a photo album filled with pictures of her and Marcus, with my family cut out of group photos. The disturbing nature of the gift only reinforced concerns about her mental state. The police officer, experienced in family disputes, recommended we pursue a protective order. The school incident, combined with documentation of Emma's escalating behavior, provided sufficient grounds. He warned that without intervention, these situations often escalated to more serious crimes. That evening, my husband and I made the difficult decision to pursue legal protection. We compiled all our evidence, the defaced magazines, fake messages, false complaints, and witness statements. The stack of documentation was disturbingly thick for just a few months of harassment. My parents supported our decision, though it broke their hearts. They tried everything to help Emma, but she refused to acknowledge she needed help. Protecting their grandchildren had to take priority over enabling their troubled daughter's behavior. We filed for the protective order the next morning. The legal process was straightforward but emotionally draining. Detailing Emma's actions in legal documents made the situation feel more real and serious. This wasn't just family drama anymore, it was a safety issue. Emma was served with papers 3 days later. Her reaction, predictably, was to blame me for criminalizing family conflict. She called our parents hysterical, claiming I was trying to destroy her life through the legal system. They remained firm, supporting our need for protection. The hearing date was set for 2 weeks later. During that time, Emma violated the temporary order twice, driving past our house and attempting to contact me through a mutual friend. Each violation was documented and added to our case. As the hearing approached, more truth emerged. Ben discovered Emma had created the fake messages using templates from a revenge website that specialized in destroying your enemies. Her browser history, which she'd forgotten to clear on our parents' computer, revealed weeks of planning. She'd researched how to falsify documents, how to make anonymous complaints, and even how to access school records illegally. The premeditation was chilling. This wasn't emotional reaction, but calculated campaign to destroy my reputation and family. Our attorney, recommended by Marcus's lawyer, was experienced in family harassment cases. She'd seen similar situations where wedding conflicts revealed deeper mental health issues. She prepared us for various scenarios while emphasizing the importance of staying factual and calm. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Despite everything Emma had done, she was still my sister. Part of me grieved for the relationship we'd never had, the sisterhood destroyed by jealousy and mental illness. But my children's safety had to come first. My husband held me as I cried, reminding me that protecting our family wasn't cruel, it was necessary. Emma had chosen this path through her actions. We were simply responding to protect ourselves from someone who'd shown no boundaries or remorse. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood. We dressed carefully, professionally, wanting to present ourselves as the stable, reasonable family we were. My parents came for moral support, their faces showing the strain of recent months. As we entered the courthouse, I saw Emma across the parking lot. She looked smaller somehow, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw a flash of something, regret, anger, before she looked away. The hearing itself was surreal. Sitting in a courtroom, detailing my sister's harassment to a judge felt like a nightmare. But as I presented evidence and testimony, I felt a strange sense of relief. Finally, someone with authority was taking this seriously. Emma's defense was predictable. She claimed misunderstandings, exaggerations, and family bias against her. But when presented with concrete evidence, the videos, documents, and witness statements, her stories fell apart. The judge saw through her manipulations. When the judge granted the protective order, Emma let out a wail that echoed through the courtroom. She accused everyone of conspiring against her, claimed the system was broken, and had to be escorted out by security. It was painful to witness her complete break from reality. The protective order hearing concluded with strict terms. Emma couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my children, our home, their schools, or my workplace. The judge's stern warning about criminal charges for violations seemed to finally penetrate Emma's delusions. She left the courthouse supported by two friends I didn't recognize, her dramatic exit drawing stares from other families dealing with their own legal matters. That afternoon, my parents called a family meeting at their house. Extended relatives gathered in the living room where we'd celebrated countless holidays together. My uncle James, who'd remained neutral throughout the conflict, stood up first. He revealed that Emma had borrowed money from him months ago, claiming it was for wedding deposits, but he'd recently discovered she'd used it to pay off gambling debts from online betting sites. My cousin Benji shared next. Emma had contacted his employer claiming he'd stolen proprietary information from her company, the job she'd already been fired from. Fortunately, his boss recognized the accusation as baseless, but it had created temporary tension at work. Other relatives shared similar stories of Emma's attempts to manipulate or damage their lives when they'd shown any support for me. The pattern was clear. Emma's vindictiveness extended far beyond our immediate conflict. She'd been systematically targeting anyone who didn't fully embrace her victim narrative. My aunt suggested cutting Emma off completely until she sought help, a proposal that gained unanimous support except for my parents, who still hoped for reconciliation. 3 days after the hearing, Marcus's mother called me. She'd been cleaning out the apartment Emma had shared with her son when she found boxes of documents. Among them were printouts of my social media posts with notes planning how to twist them, drafts of the fake emails before Emma had finalized them, and a journal detailing her resentment going back years. Most disturbing was a list titled Phase 2 that outlined plans to call Child Protective Services with anonymous tips, contact my nursing board with ethics complaints, and even plant evidence of neglect in our home during a planned reconciliation visit. The premeditation was staggering, showing Emma had been planning this campaign long before the wedding conflict provided an excuse. Marcus's mother brought everything to my house, apologizing for what her son had unknowingly enabled. She revealed that Marcus had started therapy and was uncovering more lies. Emma had told him I'd bullied her throughout childhood, stolen boyfriends, and sabotaged her opportunities. He was horrified to learn none of it was true. The next week brought unexpected consequences. Emma's former employer contacted me after seeing her public social media meltdowns. They were considering legal action for the false statements she'd made about wrongful termination and asked if I'd serve as a character witness. I agreed to provide documentation, but declined deeper involvement, not wanting to escalate further. My children's school implemented new security measures after the incident with Mason. Pickup procedures changed, requiring photo ID and verbal passwords. The principal assured me these changes had been planned anyway, but Emma's intrusion accelerated implementation. Other parents, learning about the situation through school gossip, shared their own stories of family members with untreated mental health issues. One morning, I arrived at work to find flowers on my desk, not from Emma, but from my nursing colleagues who'd heard about the false complaint. The card read, "Real nurses support each other," and I learned they'd collectively written a letter to administration praising my professionalism. My supervisor mentioned that Emma's complaint had actually highlighted my excellent record, resulting in a commendation going into my file. The positive support was overwhelming. Neighbors who'd received Emma's anonymous letters about the fictional daycare made a point of telling me they'd never believed them. My children's teachers reported that Lily and Mason seemed unaffected by the drama, maintaining their usual cheerful demeanors. Even Sophie's pediatrician called to confirm that the appointment Emma tried to cancel had been rescheduled without issue. 2 weeks passed peacefully. Then my mother called, crying. Emma had been arrested for shoplifting at a department store. Security footage showed her concealing expensive jewelry, and when confronted, she'd caused a scene claiming the store was persecuting her because of her family situation. The police found her car full of stolen items from various stores. My father drove to the jail, but Emma refused to see him. She'd listed a woman none of us knew as her emergency contact, apparently a new friend from an online support group for victims of narcissistic abuse. This stranger had been feeding Emma's delusions, encouraging her to see herself as the victim of a family conspiracy. The shoplifting charges were serious. The stolen goods totaled over $3,000, making it a felony. Emma's court-appointed lawyer contacted my parents about character references, but they honestly couldn't provide positive ones given recent events. The lawyer seemed unsurprised, mentioning that Emma's version of events didn't match any evidence. During this chaos, life continued. Mason's school play went beautifully, with him remembering all his lines as tree number 3. Lily's science fair project about butterflies won second place. Sophie started saying new words daily, including a clear no that she used liberally. These normal moments felt precious after months of drama. Marcus reached out one final time, sending a certified letter apologizing for not seeing Emma's behavior sooner. He included a check reimbursing us for all wedding-related expenses, though I hadn't asked for it. His note explained he discovered Emma had been intercepting his mail and hiding his family's attempts to contact him about their concerns. The shoplifting case moved quickly. Emma pleaded guilty to avoid trial, receiving probation and mandatory counseling. The judge, reviewing her recent behavior pattern, ordered psychological evaluation and treatment as conditions. Emma tried to blame her actions on family stress, but the prosecutor presented evidence of her planning and previous deceptions. My grandmother, despite everything, attended Emma's sentencing. She later told me Emma had looked right through her, showing no recognition or remorse. The courtroom was nearly empty, just my parents, grandmother, and Emma's new friend who spent the hearing muttering about injustice and taking notes for what she claimed would be a blog expose. Probation requirements meant Emma had to maintain employment, attend therapy, and submit to regular substance testing. She moved in with her enabling friend, cutting off contact with family members who wouldn't affirm her victim narrative. My parents received one email stating she was rebuilding her life away from toxic influences and wouldn't contact them until they acknowledged their role in her persecution. The family began healing without Emma's constant chaos. Holiday planning proceeded smoothly with no debates about children's behavior or exclusive venues. Relatives who'd been walking on eggshells relaxed, sharing stories and photos freely without fear of Emma's judgment or retaliation. My children asked about Aunt Emma once, wondering why she wasn't at Grandma's birthday dinner. I simply explained she was taking some time to work on feeling better, and they accepted it without question. Children adapt remarkably well when shielded from adult conflicts. 3 months after the shoplifting arrest, Victoria contacted me again. She'd heard through professional networks that Emma was working at a call center, having been rejected from multiple positions requiring background checks. Emma had apparently created a new resume, omitting her previous employment entirely, claiming she'd been a freelance consultant during those years. The protective order remained in effect, requiring annual renewal. Each time the date approached, I documented any attempts at contact or concerning behavior. Emma tested boundaries occasionally, driving past our neighborhood, creating new social media accounts to monitor family members, sending gifts to my parents' house for the children. My parents struggled most with the estrangement. They attended a support group for families dealing with adult children's mental health issues, finding comfort in shared experiences. Other parents described similar patterns: the lies, manipulation, refusal to accept responsibility, and eventual legal troubles. 6 months later, our lives had settled into peaceful routine. My nursing career flourished without the stress of Emma's interference. The children grew and thrived. Lily joined Girl Scouts, Mason discovered a love for soccer, and Sophie transitioned to preschool smoothly. My husband's business recovered from the fake review, actually gaining customers who appreciated how we'd handled the situation. Marcus sent a wedding announcement. He'd met someone new, a teacher who understood his past and supported his healing journey. His note thanked me again for inadvertently saving him from a life built on deception. He mentioned Emma had tried contacting him repeatedly, but he'd maintained firm boundaries. The extended family grew closer through the ordeal. Regular gatherings replaced the formal events Emma had preferred. Children ran freely through backyards while adults shared potluck meals. My grandmother, energized by the drama-free environment, began hosting weekly dinners again. 1 year after the wedding that never happened, I received a letter forwarded through my parents. Emma wrote that therapy was helping her understand her anger issues, but still blamed family dynamics for her behavior. She wanted to reconcile, but only if I admitted my role in destroying her happiness. The letter went unanswered. My parents shared that Emma's probation officer reported general compliance but resistance to accepting responsibility. Her therapy focused on managing emotions and developing healthier coping mechanisms. Progress was slow, with Emma still viewing herself primarily as a victim of circumstances. The family's response was measured. Some relatives hoped for eventual reconciliation, while others remained skeptical. Everyone agreed that any future relationship would require genuine accountability and sustained behavioral change from Emma. Protecting the children remained non-negotiable. As the second anniversary of the initial wedding conflict approached, I reflected on how much had changed.